So these are the taps, and like most taps these days, single hole mixer tap, you get a couple of flexes basically. The flexes are one of those things that a lot of people worry about because you do get them odd times. I know a block of flats that were flooded out because the top flat had got some flexes under the bathroom basin actually, and one of them burst. But let's hope these are all right. I mean, you've got no choice now. You've just got to go with it because there's no alternative to whacking the flexes in the bottom here. When I take taps off, I very often find that people have put all kinds of sealant, all kinds of guns around here, or even tried to put a bit of PTFE tape on the thread. But you've got two O-rings there, and the O-rings go into the tap and they make like an interference fit. I say two O-rings, sometimes you only get one O-ring, but in this particular case we've got two O-rings, so we can just thread those in. It doesn't really matter which one goes in where because they're both the same thread. They're not marked hot and cold. So we just screw that round to get that hand tight into there. It's got a nut on it just to make a tiny nip up. But really speaking, you don't want to give it too much there. You just want to make sure that it's not going to come undone. So the important thing is that you don't use the flexi itself to tighten that in. So as tempting as it is to just try and get yourself a bit of purchase on that flexi, you can put it in hand tight with the flexi as I'm doing here, but when it gets to that point there, you don't really want to be winding it round, because if you do get bursts from these things, it's normally because they've been damaged during the installation. So just proceed with caution. I could just give it a little turn round just to tighten it on. So what I've got here is a pair of long nose pliers, which are just going to be able to get around those flats and just tighten them in slightly. But I reckon that's good enough. As I say, it's the O-rings that are doing the sealing. Basically, they would do the sealing even if they were just push fits. Tightening them up is to stop them becoming unwound. So this is the back plate, which is like a horseshoe. We've got the chrome bezel that goes on the top that allows the taps to swivel, so we can put that on. So okay, we've got the bezel plate on, we've got the two flexes in place. Now I'm going to put the screw connection into there. Sometimes you can do it the other way around, it doesn't really matter. It's always a good idea to put the plug in when you're doing any kind of work like this, because otherwise you drop the bits down the plug hole and then you've got to take the waste apart to get hold of them. So if you can do that, that's always a good idea. So we'll stick that in there. You can see it's got a slot in the end. So you can tighten that up slightly with the slotted screwdriver just to make sure that's in there. So we then put the whole lot in. We've got the washer in place, we're going into there, and now we put the rubber washer on, and then the back plate, and then the nut. To do modern taps, you really need to get yourself a set of box spanners. So if I can't quite reach up there, what I can do, add box spanners, piggyback them on, we end up with a longer spanner, and that will allow us to come down inside the sink and then put the Tommy bar in to tighten it up. That's why a set is better than just the dedicated one. So we've got it, we're set up there now. Just to give you some idea of what we're trying to achieve under the sink, we're going to put our horseshoe rubber washer on, then we're going to put that on, but we're going to have to do it upside down in place. And then they will tighten down onto the other side of the sink, sit like that. And we do the nut up with a box spanner. That's the theory. That's the nut I supplied with this tap, but the nut that I've taken off the other tap has got a much longer body on it. When it comes to tightening it up, that is a better bet. I'm going to use that nut rather than the one supplied. Happily, this nut is actually at the front. A great help, so I don't need that double. At the moment, I'm managing quite well. So that's the taps in position, that's the hard part if you like, but now I notice these won't quite go in there. I'm just a little bit on the short side. Gotta go and make up a couple of connectors now. So that's the taps in, a little bit of a fiddle because I had to extend that pipe work, but I want to just show you one tip, and if you don't take anything else away from this video but this one tip, I think it's worthwhile. So here we have a typical flexi, and you'll notice that in the flexi is a rubber washer. and that's actually in the flexi. You don't have to add it. It should be fine to go, especially if it's new. Now, what we very often do is we very often connect the flexi up to an isolating valve that just simply screws on there. Now, if you don't over tighten this nut, in other words, it just makes contact with that rubber washer, you'll probably be all right. But this has got a sharp edge to it because it's made for a olive to go in there and a piece of pipe. So both ends have got a sharp edge. So we've got a direction of flow here. So that needs to go in that way, but you'll see that that leaves that sharpish edge onto the rubber washer. And what can happen is if you over tighten that slightly, it'll cut through that rubber washer and you'll get a slight drip from it. So what I sometimes do is I get a flat file down and I just file off the sharp edge there, as I've done with this one, and that means that when it hits the washer, it's absolutely fine. The other way that you can do it, if you haven't got the isolating valves there, and you just want to join onto the pipe, you can use what they call a male iron. This is a 1/2" male iron. It's a copper compression fitting. Now you'll notice that that bit of male iron there is absolutely flat. So that's purpose made for going on to that nut. So that'll be absolutely fine. That'll give you a lovely seal. But if you want that isolator, and you're supposed to have isolators, it's just that sometimes they leak. The other option that we've got is to use these, which are adapters. Now, I'm going to put the details below for these in case you want to buy them, but if you go to a good plumber's merchants or you go to the internet, you'll be able to pick these up.